Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Shape Unplugged. I am your host, Stephanie Morris, CEO of Shape America. And today I have two amazing guests with me to talk about health education. Dr. Sarah Toth, Associate Professor of Health Science at the Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University and co-chair of the National Health Education Standards Task Force, and Holly Alperin, Program Coordinator and Clinical Associate Professor, Health and Physical Education at the University of New Hampshire, and also Chair of Shape America's Health Education Council. So Sarah and Holly, thank you both so very much for joining me today and being willing to be guests on Shape Unplugged.
Thanks, Stephanie. Happy to be here.
So to kick us off, I'm sure that our listeners would love to hear just a little bit about who you are, where you live, and the role that you play in health education. And that is, of course, both professionally and as leaders in our health and physical education volunteer leadership community. So with that, please, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. As Stephanie had said, I'm Holly Alperin, and I am the chair of the Health Education Council within Shape America. And professionally, I have a couple different hats, but primarily I'm the program coordinator and clinical associate professor of our health and PE program at UNH. And, one of the things that I always like to point out is that prior to coming to UNH is that I spent a lot of time in state government as well. And so kind of overseeing, which I use that term loosely because really my role was to help support the teachers in the field doing their thing every day related to health and physical education, and really, had a lot of opportunity to see school health, all aspects of school health, including physical activity, the nutrition side of things, health education, physical education, kind of from that inside out. And so having, that opportunity has been really great. So Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Holly, and thank you, Stephanie. It is so wonderful to see you both today, and I'm delighted to be a part of this podcast. And so, as Stephanie said, my name is Sarah Toth, and I'm here in Huntsville, Alabama at Alabama A&M University. We are an HBCU, and so I'm what you call a double dog. Not only am I a professor here, but I am also an alumna. And I'm just especially excited because our governor has just deemed October HBCU month, and Alabama has the most HBCUs in the entire country. So this is a really special time for us. And like Holly, I wear a lot of hats, not only in my role as professor, but also volunteering with, of course, Shape America as one of the co-chairs for the National Health Education Task Force. But also I serve as an officer or a board member for Delta Sophie, our state organization, ASAPERD, NCHEC for the division board of the CHES exam. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. Oh, locally, Madison County, I sit on the DHR Quality Assurance Committees. Like Holly, I just have an absolute passion for this field. I got my start in K-12, and I am absolutely delighted to be here. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Just wow. I mean, you both contribute so much in so many ways to our health education professional community. And I am sure that over the years, you have moved through your experiences professionally and personally to really consider why health education is so meaningful to our students, especially moving through, the COVID crises and all of the challenges we know students are facing today on the health education front. So as you think back and reflect on all of this, your experiences, can you share a little bit with our listeners about why health education has never been more critical as a subject today for our students? Just any thoughts that you have along those lines?
Absolutely, Stephanie. That is a great question. And we have come full circle. And I really think that the COVID experience has been ground zero for health education and been such an eye-opening opportunity for all of us. Not only the emphasis on contagious disease that we've had lately and the role that we can play in prevention, but of course, the same old song with chronic disease, which a lot of them are completely preventable when we look at type 2 diabetes, many types of cancer, heart attack, stroke. We just need to get that word out there. And we know research shows that there is a correlation between health education and health outcome. And it may not be immediate, like cause and effect, but we see it, years down the road, kind of like planting that bamboo, and it doesn't grow for 2 years, but underneath the ground, the roots are growing, and then suddenly you have growth after a couple of years. So I think that health education is really the key. And especially we know that healthy habits are established in those K-12, those formative years, and carry on into adulthood. So we definitely have a mandate, a need for chronic disease. Gosh, mental health. Wow, if that has not been exposed in the pandemic, I mean, mental health. And one of the things to come out of it is just getting the conversation going, that it's not so taboo. We have celebrities like Simone Biles, coming forward. Maybe we are having a higher incidence, but at least we're being able to talk about it, share resources and whatnot. So I personally feel very galvanized to carry our efforts forward. And then I think the big picture really is just, for me personally, having a big heart, just a love for all people, that we're not all alike. We have diversity, and that's what makes us better and stronger. But the passion to really help people live the absolute best lives that they can. And in order to do that, we have to have our health in all of these dimensions, not just the physical, but the social and emotional as well.
And I would say that it started for me, this is probably a fun fact that most people don't know about me, is that I actually got my start in health education when I was in high school. And so I served on a state student advisory board of high school students in Michigan that was really focused on reducing drinking and driving. And what that opened my eyes to that experience was a couple of different things. Is one, the power of young people, right, to have an impact on the health and well-being of those around them. And two, that we're not doing enough to have the conversation where it becomes normalized. And so, all throughout my experiences and up and through my career, I've really been able to harness this idea, and even now in training college students, this idea that it's not about just that end product, right? Getting to death and how fast we get to death, because we want to obviously take longer to get there, but it's about the journey on the way. And really, the more and more, the salutogenic approach is what it's called, but the more and more I kind of dive into this, and not to get too weighty into that, but this idea that it's about how we're facing and really working to shape this narrative where health and well-being is something that should be celebrated, and that everyone has the capacity to get there, and that we're really doing it for this purpose of being healthy. And even what does that term healthy mean? It's really subjective. And so when I think about why this is such a critical subject for students today, for me, what it always boils down to is young people don't suddenly just become these adults who are supposed to know what to do. We need to provide space for them to explore and examine, to really become who they are through what's important to them. And when we give those experiences through health education, and we really do it in a way that builds on the assets that each of those students and young people are bringing to the table, we help them to develop their own agency, so that when they become adults, they've increased levels of health literacy. They can have conversations with healthcare providers. They can speak to those around them in ways that promote or support health and well-being. And if we're not providing that space to young people in schools and in the classroom, we're doing them a disservice, because we're making an assumption that they're getting it somewhere else. And while some of our young people might be, I think it's a disservice, because not all of our young people are.
I love those answers. I have so much appreciation for all the thoughts you both shared. I have to say, I'm not a content expert. I talk about this frequently to help members of our community understand how much I learn from them, from you both, every day. That is so true. And so I will also say, I did not understand what health education was until I had the opportunity to sit in the classrooms of several amazing, incredible health education teachers, and sitting there and hearing their lessons, and seeing the relationships they had developed with their students, and talking to them directly opened my eyes completely to what health education actually is today, and why it's so important. And so I am so grateful for that understanding. It motivates me to be the best advocate I can be for our health education community. And I have so much appreciation for everything you both just shared about the importance of this subject and why it's so meaningful. So thank you both. And so on that note, let's talk for a minute about professional development and resources, right? When you think about how important it is for our students to receive quality, skills-based, standards-based health education, I am sure that you, like me, often sort of worry about what the opportunities are for our teachers to better their practice, to grow as teachers. So can you just share a little bit with our listeners about the different professional development resources out there and where you'd advise teachers go who might be seeking the opportunity to advance their practice?
Sure. I think that the words skills-based are very near and dear to my heart. And in fact, so much so that I often say that I can't wait till we get to a point where when we say health education, we mean that it's skills-based, because health education has evolved so much over the years that we're, started off, and many of us have come up through programs that trained us that it's all about disease and risk reduction. And that what we now know is that it's so much more than that. And that the way we get to that not only is through prevention, but it's through the doing and the act, right? And so really looking for professional development opportunities that help lead us there. And even though I would argue that there's still a lot of professional development opportunities that are presented that are still very content heavy, because oftentimes they're coming from content experts. And so anytime that we go to those, there absolutely can be value in those. And so if you're finding it from your local health department, or your state health department, or even some other content expert in an area, one of the things that I would automatically ask folks to do is to think about the way in which you can position it in your classroom so that it helps students to learn the skills and apply the skills that help them to integrate that information, right? And so wherever that's coming from, and whether it's from, amazing organizations like Answer and SECUS and Advocates for Youth, if we're talking on the sexual health side of things, Youth Mental Health First Aid is another opportunity that really is a training. But even that, we're learning how to support young people. That's not necessarily a teaching tool. Obviously, I'm pro Shape America. There's some really great stuff in the teacher toolkit and on the website. And the Health Ed Council is developing some additional stuff as well. Similarly, your state AFERD organization have a lot of stuff. State departments of education. I sometimes think that education organizations or agencies are underrated because we sometimes feel like, well, that doesn't apply to me or that doesn't pertain to me. The stuff coming out isn't always from content experts. And one of the things that I tell my undergrad and grad students all the time is there's so much in health education that's built off of learning theory, and that being a strong teacher that embraces learning theory helps you to be a strong skills-based health educator. Erica's Lighthouse has some great stuff as it relates to mental health and Breathe for Change. And so I had the opportunity to go through their 200-hour yoga teacher training program. And that's all focused on being culturally responsive and trauma informed. And what I so appreciated about that is that it's all built off of SEL foundations. And it really helps you to think about, what does this mean? And what is the language we're using? And how are we integrating this into our practice? And most people there aren't health and PE people, right? These are classroom teachers. These are community educators. These are just people who care about young people. And so it's a great opportunity if anybody is interested in more of that yoga, SEL, thinking about professional development for that lens. There's lots that I could go into, but I also want to give Sarah a chance here.
Thank you, Holly. And I would just like to piggyback off of what you had there. So many great sites, so many great resources. And really, sometimes teachers don't even know where to start. And so, along with the specific websites and, of course, the organizations, of course, SHAPE, SOFI, ASHA, CDC, the Academy, our newest organization, the state organizations, there are lots of sites out there. I just want to put in just a plug for health literacy. Part of health literacy for teachers as well as the general population is being able to discern what is a legitimate health site or health resource and what is not. And so, of course, we can turn to our professional organization for that. But let's say there's a teacher out there just doing a general search. We really want to stick to those .gov sites, .edu sites. .gov is going to be, of course, federal government. EDU is going to be, Institute of Higher Learning. It's going to be more research oriented on that. And then those .org sites as well. So just some general guidelines for examining resources and putting them to the litmus test. Professional development is very near and dear to my heart. I spent 4 years after being in the elementary classroom, spending all of my time, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes on the weekend, delivering professional development to not only teachers, but also school and district administrators. And I'm here to say they are hungry for it.
Mhm.
But when we look at the reality, let's say you've got a state where there is one person that is the contact for not only health, but PE for the entire state. And then that person, one of the responsibilities is providing the professional development. Finance, funding, let's find some grants that kind of fill in that disconnect between the need and the demand for professional development and then the actual delivery of it. So we do have a ways to go in this area, but the teachers are very open to it. And they realize how important health is in the classroom, and administrators too. We want healthy children, not only for the obvious reasons of we want everyone to experience optimal health for their own purposes, but when we look at a society as a whole, how it affects the economy, the state economy, the local economy. It affects students' attendance, which affects their grades and their ability to learn. So it's not just health is multifaceted and it affects a lot of areas in our life. And sometimes that professional development piece can help the administrators realize what the impact is. Getting the funding is so important. Putting the professional development piece in place is important too. And that is something we are working on the task force, that implementation. When we are finished with the standards and we have the rollout, what kind of opportunities will be there? What kind of needs, we plan on doing some type of needs assessment. How can we best get standards-based health education, professional development implemented? So that's one of the pieces that we're working on and open to, and really want feedback from our key stakeholders in. So great question, Stephanie. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you both again for such insightful thoughts and really good recommendations, a plethora of recommendations about different resources and opportunities for teachers who might be seeking more information or professional development opportunities in health education. So thank you. Holly, as chair of Shape America's Health Education Council, can you share with us just a few brief updates? I'm sure listeners are curious what the council's focused on these days. What are the projects ahead? All that good stuff.
Sure. So much good stuff happening and a lot of opportunity for people to get involved. One thing I didn't mention during the PD was that don't underestimate the power of your own network and your own learning network. And whether it's finding folks through Twitter or other online platforms, but reaching out, like feel free to reach out to the Health Ed Council, myself, or any other member on it, or any of the task forces, right? Because there's so many good things going on saying, hey, I have a question about this. And, so if someone reaches out to me, I get that all the time. I have this question, or I'm trying to figure this out. And if I'm not the person, or I don't have the best answer, or even if I do have an answer, it's, hey, have you talked to so-and-so, or have you, right? And so really building and using those connections, because I think, every time I do PD with teachers, there's so much that comes out of what's already there. And sometimes we just don't either have the time or take the time to harness that. And so part of our work on the Health Ed Council is explicitly pertaining to that. Is how are we supporting teachers in the field to do not only what they do best, but to promote and improve their own practice in ways that advances us towards health literacy and advances, outcomes of young people. 3 key priorities for this year include, we're going to be assembling a task force that is focused on inclusive practices in health education. And we're talking about intersectional inclusive practices. So we're talking about the ways that health education can be more culturally responsive and sustaining. We're talking about race, we're talking about ableism, we're talking about across other minoritized groups and populations, right? So there's lots of different ways that we need to think about and opportunities that we can be more inclusive in health class. And whether we're talking about, sometimes this goes straight to the sex ed topic. And yes, the answer is yes, right? We need to be more inclusive of our LGBTQIA population, of all students and all identities in our classroom. And we also need to be thinking about even things like the way we talk about nutrition, and that it's not one size fits all for everybody. And so the task force that'll be assembled will be emphasizing that, looking at what are some of those inclusive practices, and then creating some resources related to that. So stay tuned for that announcement coming soon. We're also going to be creating another task force that's looking at building administrative support for health education specifically. And so working with Audra and some staff at Shape America, and through some other work that's going on, the ways in which we can really focus in and promote health education in the space and what that looks like. Does that mean partnering with other national organizations? Does that mean providing some talking points to both teachers and administrators about the value of a well-designed health education program? Right, it could be any of the above, and many other things that aren't already on the table. The third key thing that we're going to be assembling folks together to talk about is creating a white paper related to appropriate time in school-based health education. So there are some recommendations that currently live in the National Health Education Standards, and so we're going to be revisiting those and exploring to make sure that those are still the target that we should be aiming for, and if not, what should it be and what should it look like? So those are the three key things that you'll be seeing announcements coming out from the Health Ed Council very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly. I'm really excited about all of those projects, and I'm really looking forward to lifting up and supporting all of this great, great work. So Sarah, you had mentioned, you had referred a little bit to the work of the National Health Education Standards Task Force, which of course you co-chair with Nadine Marchesalt. Can you just share a little bit more with our listeners about the work of that group and the progress you're making, and what we can expect next?
Absolutely. So I am honored and humbled to co-chair with Nadine this task force, which Holly is a part of as well. And we're delighted to have her. We have a team of about 20, and so much expertise, diversity in every way, geographically, racially, gender, in every way you can think of, we hit all of the marks. And so that has made just really a beautiful symphony of people coming together and to review and revise these standards, which, as most of you are aware, have been in place as is intact since 2009, I believe. Which, so we are overdue for a revision, or at least a review. But I think it also testifies to what a great job the previous task force did. That these have really stood the test of time. So where are we right now? We have met, it's really about our 1 year anniversary of coming together as a group and solidifying what we are, our tasks that we're working on. And so where we are currently is that we have done both horizontal and vertical reviews. We're on our second vertical review right now. So horizontal review means we're looking at the standards. We have a draft, and we're looking at the standards to see, do they flow as far as elementary, middle, and high school. And so we look at all the standards through the elementary lens, through the middle school lens, through the high school lens. And then we also have a vertical review. We take standard one and we look, pre-K through 12, does it flow? How does the language work? Is there, integrity? And then they look at standard 2, standard 3. So we're in the middle of our, I think, our second vertical review. We did our first one this summer, and it will be several, but we do have a working draft right now that we're excited about, that we're tweaking a little bit. We're working on the rationale. So each standard has a rationale. It's just really a more in-depth look at each standard. And then there are performance indicators, which maybe the viewers will recognize for as the student will. And then the statements are written that way. So we have the performance indicators as well. And so we're delighted that we are currently undergoing internal review, of course, with the Health Education Council, with the diversity and inclusion group, the DEI group. Tilsa is the new chair of that, and she's also on our committee. So we are really rolling. We are on all cylinders right now, getting it ready to, of course, we've got several more edits and whatnot to do, but we're going to have this polished up enough for review with reviewers, and then hopefully open for general public review too. And it's just very important to us to have stakeholders a chance to give input at every step of the process. If you all were there at the SHAPE convention, if the viewers were there at the SHAPE convention, we had multiple opportunities for updates, coffee talks, and just putting a plug in for Seattle 2023. It's not too early for that. We are going to be doing more of the same, but I think you're going to be blown away.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think what really is exciting to so many people in the community is just what you noted, the diverse, inclusive nature of the task force. And also, I will also say the slow, thoughtful, intentional process that you are taking as you carefully consider what is right for the standards, what will be right for health education teachers and their students. So much appreciation for that. And really, really excited to see those draft standards once you are ready for community review and input for sure. So with that, thank you both again so much for being on the show today. Do either of you want to share any last thoughts with our listeners?
Thank you to everyone who joined us today for being here. When you see, or you, by the time this airs, you may have already seen those task force announcements. If you didn't do those, or there's any time or way that you want to be more involved in the Health Education Council or in the work that the Health Education Council is doing, please don't hesitate to reach out with myself. And I can always make connections because there's always projects. We're always looking for folks who are willing and interested across all levels. And if you're saying to yourself, I teach, I'm not at higher ed, or I'm in a community-based organization and I'm not in a school, but I want to get involved because I care about health education in schools, right? Reach out, because we're always looking for people who have the heart and the passion, and we can pull those minds together to create something really fabulous.
And exactly what Holly said, feel free to reach out to myself or Nadine. And I know you will be hearing a lot of task force news in the next coming months as well. And I just want to be an encouragement. I know we can be discouraged sometimes listening to the media. It's just attention grabbing, negative news. But we are making so many strides in health education. We're making a difference in the health outcomes, in the physical, social, emotional, mental areas, dimensions of health as well. And I just want everybody to realize that you do have a contribution. Like Holly said, we are all important pieces of the puzzle. And so you may be bringing something to the table that nobody else has or somebody has not thought of. And we can all make a difference in our own communities locally. And just by the advocacy that we do and the media that we provide, the resources that we provide, the opportunities that we provide, we're more there's power in one, but there is really a synergy that is more powerful when we come together for a common goal.
So much truth to all of that. So much good stuff to reflect on that was shared today. So thank you both so much, Holly and Sarah, for being our guests on Shape Unplugged. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you also reach out to Holly and Sarah if you want to be engaged. I hope you will want to be engaged. And I also hope that you tune in next time to Shape Unplugged. So with that, thank you all again very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.